Welcome to another episode of the Wealthy Podcast. I'm your host, Shauna Nyros, and I'm really excited to share this episode with you today. Today, I'm sitting down with Morgan Decksheimer, who is the founder and CEO of Meal Prep for You. And you might be asking yourself, what does a meal prep service have to do with the Wealthy Podcast? Well, I can tell you, we talk about wealth on so many levels. We know that diet and nutrition has a huge impact on our overall health. And Morgan and I get into that, but we also talk about how we can support the health and well-being of our communities and our local economies by making good choices. We also talk about what it means to be an entrepreneur and how we can cultivate good intentions and solid, sustainable, meaningful intentions around operating a business and moving forward with grace and with purpose. You're going to want to listen up. Today on Wealthy, we're focusing on one of the most practical and powerful foundations of health, nutrition. We know that good nutrition reduces the risk of chronic disease and supports long-term well-being. Yet, most Canadians struggle to consistently prioritize healthy eating in their daily lives. A recent national survey found that 46% of people cite lack of time as their biggest barrier, followed by not knowing what to make and the rising cost of ingredients. In other words, people want to eat better, but life gets in the way. Our guest today, Morgan Decksheimer, is working to change that. As the founder of Meal Prep for You, he's built a business around removing those barriers, time, creativity, and convenience that keep us from fueling ourselves well. And for KGH staff, patients, and families at Kelowna General Hospital, his meals are now available right on site, which makes so many of us so very happy, especially at lunchtime. Offering us a simple way to choose nourishment when it's needed most. So this episode is about real world health, what it looks like, what gets in the way, and how small, consistent choices can create meaningful impact. Morgan's story is proof that you don't need to wear a white coat to be a health leader, and that sometimes the most powerful change starts with what's on your plate. So let's dive in. Welcome, Morgan.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming. Yeah, I'm really excited about this conversation. We have a bit of an opening tradition on the podcast. And so I'm really curious. Everybody that comes here has a passion and an interest for health. And I really like to know where that started. So how did you get here?
Yeah, it's a long story. So
that's
my
okay.
goal is to give a bit of a Spark Note version, because for me, Meal Prep for You is what it's evolved into. For me, it was never not supposed to be this. It wasn't supposed to be anything. It was a service I was providing as a personal trainer. But to go back even further, Meal Prep never had a business plan. It never had really anything in terms of the preparation, which is the opposite of what we'll talk about later. On meal planning. But as I started Meal Prep, I'd take it all the way back to when I was in high school. I got really involved into my health, my fitness, and just gaining a general understanding of it when I was in grade 11. Very specifically, I moved away to Vancouver Island and I went to a golf academy. And so my full focus was golf. I was destined to be a golfer. That was my thing. I loved it. And so I found
grade 11?
In grade 11, yeah.
Wow.
I moved away to move to Qualicum Beach, which is a very, very small little old folks town on Vancouver Island. And I did a 10-month golf program, and it came with a gym membership. And I just had basically discovered the gym in that window. So here I am on the island. I'm playing golf every day after school and going to the gym. And every time I would have a bad round of golf or anything like that, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I could brush it off. I know I'm going to go for a good workout. And that was some of the habits I started building when I was younger. And it was just very generic. It was to me, it was like a workout and a protein shake that would equate to a really good day of eating and exercise. And I got into running and biking and cycling, all these different things. And it all started there. So I had built, and I was really fortunate to have built really good habits when I was younger.
Yeah.
So as I went on, I graduated high school. I went and pursued my golf. I moved to the States and did all these different ventures. And I was 50, 60% focused on golf. But my thing was I got my fitness on the side. Like I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to go hiking. And that I've started developing. And this is kind of like pre all the information on YouTube nowadays of like, follow your passion, do all this. It was more just an underlying thing where I'm like, oh, I always had that fallback of like a bad day on the golf course or a bad day in school. It was all fine because I knew I had the gym. So I had these really great habits at a pretty young age. And so as I was going, I basically realized my golf game wasn't going to pay the bills forever. And I was enjoying it. And had some like highlight moments for sure, but nothing. I was just real with myself. And I looked around on the range and looked at these guys that were just putting in the reps and doing the things. And I ultimately wasn't. And so I just looked at that as like a bit of an injustice to my parents. It was a big sacrifice to them. I was in my early 20s and I'm like, I don't got it. So I relocated back to Kelowna. I came home. Moved back in with my parents, which was great, all the things. And I just got a job working construction. I bounced around sort of between the oil patch and construction, and not really for me. I was good. Like I was good working hand. I was helpful, but wasn't my passion. And I started developing, like I always in the back of my mind, I'd be doing something and I'm like, I can't see myself growing old doing this. I cannot see it. And I just remember vividly like laying in bed being like, okay, I need $20 a day or $50 a day to like cover base rent, base food costs and all these things. And once I established that low amount of money I needed to like get out of construction, I just quit. And I'm like, I'm done with that. And I went and applied for a job at a gym, and that was Global Fitness.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm kind of in my like mid 20s or early 20s. And I went there, and the general manager, she's still there. It's Darcia Fenton. Yes. She's amazing. And she gave me a book. So it was like my first day. She gave me an opportunity, and she gave me a personal training book. And it was just ways to kind of think outside the box as a trainer. And so I took this book, and it was like, instead of selling hourly rates to personal training clients, I built a brochure, and the brochure was just 3 different programs, and it was a membership. And I remember with Global Fitness, you needed to have certain thresholds of revenue to get your different pay structure. And I'm like, oh, well, I want this pay structure, but it's impossible. You need to do like 8 sessions, 7 days a week. Nobody can do that. And so I put this membership out there, and people bought it. And this membership was a set rate. And I would just see people, like I would just be at the gym 6 hours a day. They're paying a monthly rate, and it included your training, your nutrition, and some of these other pieces, like just where I was just like an all-encompassing person to be in your corner. And so, yeah, had some people come in, and we put this big fancy program on there, and we're like, nobody will buy it, but it'll make this middle program look good. Everybody bought the big program.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So I hit a home run with this, and I had a guy come in he moved here from Vegas, and he came in, he bought like 6 months. So he dropped a pile of money, and it hit me in this threshold where I got a phone call from Darcy, and she's like, hey, you're like,
you did it.
The first trainer to really see this through here. And so you got this pay structure. And the problem was, and what she wouldn't know is, when I would go and work with these clients, they would be like, they misinterpreted the nutrition consulting with like, oh man, like I don't, like single guys were buying this program and stuff. They're like, I don't cook. And I'm like, I need you to eat what I'm eating to get the results I need you to get. So they're like, well, great. So that's what I assume the program is. So I'm like, cool. Run over to Walmart. I remember buying all this Tupperware and putting together these meals that I was just making and delivering them, and then training these people and going about this. And it was sort of the all-encompassing program. The problem is I was getting a better threshold, but now I was buying everybody's groceries with that money. So it was like a huge losing battle, because people were just paying this rate. And
they're like, this is great.
Yeah, and it included training and groceries, and nobody batted an eye, except I'm like, this is going to kill me.
Yeah.
But I was all for it. And it wasn't, I was so passionate now that I understand like why my fallback was always fitness. Is my gift was like, I can give, like I can give fitness. I wanted it more than my clients wanted it. So I'd push people pretty hard and have really high expectations for them in these different things. But now I'm cooking, I'm buying their groceries, I'm training them. I'm for sure losing money, but I'm loving it. And I had this like significant purpose. Like I was really loving it. So in like the global fitness world where I was a trainer, it was just Morgan's Meals in my training program. That's what it was. And so I just took the concept and I grew it and I grew it. And I was just doing this in my living room.
And it's kind of like it just found you.
It did. Totally. It did. And Yeah, and one of the things, and not just, I can circle back a little bit, but one of the things that I was developing was, instead of the business plan, I wanted to develop a feel. And the feel for me was like, oh, I love how I feel when I'm in the gym, or I love how I feel when I'm able to help somebody accomplish their goals in fitness. And so I had no attachment to a business model. I just had an attachment to the feeling I wanted to achieve. So in like a selfish level, I was like, oh, if I do more of this, I get more of that feeling. And so I just gave. So that was like a really big push for me.
And what was it like? What's that feeling?
Yeah, the feeling
like
was
maybe,
just,
young entrepreneurs, young men that are listening to this, or women.
For sure. I think the way I've always navigated myself is, if you can basically give appreciation for something before you receive it, and you can attach to what that feeling may be. It could be anything. It could be, if you're, we were talking about hockey prior, and if you can understand the feeling of getting the MVP in a big playoff game, it's like in advance, your body's going to naturally draw you into those opportunities. And so with business, that was the thing for me. It wasn't a pen and paper business plan. It was like, I love this feeling so much. I'm just going to follow it, basically attract it by navigating my life to making decisions that get me inch closer to it. And so when I was building prep, I was just addicted to that feeling, through tons of low points. Like, trust me, I wasn't sitting there doing dishes in my living room, just smiling, being like, oh, this is the gift of giving. I was like, this sucks. And
steaming vegetables. And, wow, I love this so much.
Because I didn't have a culinary background. Right. So whatsoever. I never had cooked for anybody in my life. Just myself. And it was very simple and all these things. So I was really drawing on like that feeling of the gift, not of the process. Like I was really just knew I had to do it. So that was kind of like the really early days. So I'm cooking in just a rental home. Actually, I rented a place at Casa Loma, which is on the west side if you're not from Kelowna. It's a little kitchenette, lakeside resort place that I would rent, and I would just prepare to there. And I did that for years.
Good for you.
Yeah, years. I had help from just family would come and help me cook because they kind of saw what I was doing. But that went on for a long time before I could sort of sock away the money to get into a rental kitchen and then build my own.
Well, fast forward, and you have been recognized and celebrated as one of our region's sort of standout young entrepreneurs. And I'm really grateful to have you here, because the intention behind Meal Prep for You is so important. And I happen to know a little bit about the product. I am a customer and a fan, and I'm also a fan of you. I think you've just done a really impressive job providing a service to our community, and now like sort of scaling that service in a way that's really positive and proactive. So I think a really great place for us to start is kind of like frame the problem we're trying to solve, or the problem that you're trying to solve. You've done a great job, even just sort of how this all came about. But like, we know that poor diet is a leading risk factor for so many chronic diseases, heart disease, metabolic disorders like diabetes, even some cancers. It's also been shown that nutrition is a really important factor in our mental well-being and cognition. And so given all of this, I'd like to just know, like, now that you've sort of jumped right in and made this your thing, your life's work, your passion, how do you see food as a tool for prevention and not just fuel? Yeah,
that's a great question. It's a loaded question, but to simplify it like a little bit is, it's the micro decisions. Like, it's the smallest decisions. It's starting just how you've planned your day. It's just the little things you do when you wake up in the morning. It's getting the glass of water. Or the cliche, it's like you wake up, you have an apple, and you have your glass of water, and that'll snowball into the next. And it is just a chain reaction, but it's really hard to undo years and years and years of poor planning. It's usually what it comes down to. It's like, intuitively, I think we all know what to eat. It's just people, just for whatever the reason, and I'm guilty of it too, and this is something that I'm involved in, but it's like we still will deviate to the easier choice. And for some reason, the easier choice is always the unhealthier choice, even though it's like they're right side by side in today's world anyways. So I think the biggest piece behind it is you don't have to be perfect. You just have to, and even people say 80-20, but I've seen incredible results. Some people eating like 60% good. Like you don't even have to be beyond that to start. You're going to want to push yourself as you get on this journey. But the biggest piece, and probably missing like sections of that question, but it's just not letting one poor decision disrupt your whole day.
Right.
That's the biggest thing I see. People make one small error and it just throws them. And then it's not like the day goes by. It's like weeks and months go by before they get back on the bandwagon, if you will. And it's just totally the wrong way to do it. Like you can completely butcher your diet for an entire week and you can get back on it, and that's totally okay. So, you know, there's different levels to this game, but ultimately it's the people that struggle the most, or when they fall off or they have one bad meal, it just snowballs into months passing. And so I see that a lot. And I think that's probably the single biggest issue is people's momentum just gets eaten up way too quick.
Well, and I just know that like once you get going, it's actually like almost like a flywheel. Like once you get going, it's easier to maintain. And I think the point is that like, you know, you came to this from kind of like a functional training background. I was like, I want to, you know, have an impact on my body composition. And so I'm going to make choices about protein and this and that. Right. But like for many, many people, I think in general, we're starting to become more aware that like the chemistry in our food directly impacts what's happening to us internally. Not just sort of from a physical level, but also like some of these other processes, hormones, metabolics, like, and those are the things that make us sick in the future. Right. And so being able to fuel ourselves wisely and make good choices, you end up, like you said, you just start to feel better. And then that is like the incentive to keep going.
It's like you said, the flywheel effect is real, and it starts with one decent decision. Like that's it. And it's like the glass of water leads to a walk instead of TV, and the walk leads to coming home and having, you know, a proper meal versus something fast and convenient. It's just a snowball effect entirely. And so we push that a lot. Like I even still get I'll pull people back. They'll come in and they're on a health kick and they're just going to want to buy everything in the fridge. And I'm like, I'll push people back and say, you know, we don't need to go ahead here and buy 30 meals. Like I'm going to encourage you to buy 3 or 4. I still want you to even prepare your own dinner so you're in tune with your food a little bit. And that's like the people that get the best results. They're switching 1 or 2 items a day. They're not coming in and just like
doing a full scale makeover.
No, never. I see that the food goes to waste. They don't eat it. It's overwhelming, and then you don't see them again. So I pull people back all the time and say, do less. And in that moment, and those are the people you see year in and year out. And time goes by, and then, you know, you kind of get the feedback. So I have people come in that they're just doing very small things, and they'll come in with their wife, and they'll be like a middle-aged guy, and they're more kind of rough around the edges, and she'll be nudging him, be like, tell him. And he's, you know, I've found a way to lose 50 pounds. I feel pretty good. Good job. And those are like kind of the things that I love is some of these people just chip away, and then they get brought in by somebody in their family being like, just tell them what you did. And it's like, you don't even know they did it because they're just buying small quantities, but it changed their life.
And it really can change your life. There's so much, you and I talked a little bit about this, like before we started recording, just about all the noise that's out there around healthy eating. Like it is so overwhelming, especially if you're active at all in social media. I mean, it's just gone bananas. And, you know, like keto, plant-based, low carb, organic, eat this, don't eat that, but now eat this. For every claim, there's a counterclaim. It's so confusing. So from your perspective, what does like healthy eating, healthy diet actually look like?
So
in real life, because that's what I love about you is like you get that real-time feedback. People come in and they're like telling you their problems, and then you get to see the impact.
So for the general public, like if we're just talking about the generally healthy, non-diagnosed with anything type of person, which makes up a probably the biggest and largest demographic right now is like the biggest piece behind it is just choosing something that's sustainable. And so I get a lot of people will just keep using weight loss. It's a big one. And so people will come in and they're on a weight loss journey and they'll look at a meal, and all of our meals that we put out are balanced. So we don't focus on keto, we don't focus on paleo or anything that's very specific that way.
Right.
We do,
or like lopsided in terms of the macros.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So your fat, protein, carb content are very balanced. And so what I would recommend to somebody is like, or that individual will come in and they'll look at a meal and they'll say, I can't have that one because it has rice. And this person may be, well overweight or just a little bit over. And the problem with that is not the rice or those complex carbs or those whole foods or grains that got us here. It's going to typically be the sugars, the convenience, like highly processed foods that your body doesn't know what to do with. But there's other cultures that just eat high carbs, and they're totally
fine,
small cultures. So the problem that people have is they get these ideas in their head and they want to come in and go keto, but they also want to have a glass of wine on a special occasion, and that just completely butchers that whole diet. So what I push people in and why we've landed on the meals we have is because it's sustainable. And so people that have success with their nutrition are people that can just basically make it, and it's cliche, but their lifestyle. Like you have to keep it that way. And keto, I don't know anybody truthfully that's in my internal circle that has been keto for like a year or two straight. It's very rare. And I think you do need to indulge in certain foods here and there. And so being on what we call our lifestyle plan is a balance of your fat, protein, and carbs. And they're just done in a ratio that works very well for muscle retention, building, and things like that, which I think we can all use a little bit of. So
absolutely.
So yeah, that's how we've gotten to where we have with our meals. Is it's sustainable,
like, and balanced,
right?
Yeah. So it's not sort of do you offer low carb or like vegetarian?
We do. So we have like a really healthy plant-based following, but again, we make it from scratch just to ensure no fillers is what I would call it in the plant-based world. A lot of filler products. And so what
would be like, I would be happily vegetarian, except I don't like to cook.
So it gets challenging for sure.
But like, so what would be considered like in a vegetarian definition? Like what would be a filler? Like,
a lot of plant-based or like vegetarian foods, a lot of it is highly processed.
Right.
So, that's not good for digestion, gut biome, different things, inflammation. Highly processed foods we just stay away from. So when we're making something from scratch, we would be using things like if we're doing a meal prep, we always would end up with lots of trimmings of vegetables that we can't put in a meal. So we're able to save those ingredients and make them into patties through using quinoa and black beans and walnuts and different like veggie grounds and falafel patties through chickpeas and different things like that. And if we are using a filler, like we need something that's going to
like amplify
instead of a flour, we'll use like a fermented chickpea powder or something like that, so then we get good protein and other things. So that would be how we operate our plant-based. And then for our like low carb meals, we double up on the vegetables, but we replace those calories with healthy fats. So it becomes a protein and fat like dominant meal, which is great if you're after the lower carb, and there's applications where that works
totally. And I mean, like, and this is no shade on like low carb decisions, but if it like you said, it's sort of like, what's the goal or what's the intention behind that? Like for there is evidence that eating low carb for some people with certain conditions can be extremely beneficial.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so doing it that way, and even our lifestyle meals are, in the grand scheme of things, they're protein focused, and then they are lower carb in the world of eating from a restaurant or anything like that. And so you can absolutely just get away with eating our meals as is. But I just go general public, like we'll tailor if need be, but to the general public, like each macronutrient, as we call it, like the protein, the carb, the fat, they do play a vital role in performance, not just of fitness and athletics, but like your brain function and how your joints and everything else move. So we go all in with pushing that. I have a little bit of wiggle room, but I push it hard. Yeah. I like balance. So.
And they're really, I don't want to like, obviously the Wealthy Podcast is not about, promoting businesses, but we are promoting health. And I had one of your salads yesterday and it was so like, it's hard. I wish I could cook like that. Like it was really, it was really, really good. And I was full. And I think that's another thing too, is like, I think we've lost perspective culturally on portion size. Even for me, I mean, I don't think I have a crazy appetite, but I like food, and it's really hard to know what an appropriate portion is.
Absolutely.
So I do love that you just kind of take that, like we were talking at the intro, like part of the problem that a lot of us have is like the thinking.
Yeah. We used to have the original slogan of meal prep was fuel your body, satisfy your appetite. And then it was taking the guesswork out of your nutrition. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that one stuck for a long time. Yeah. We're in limbo right now with what the next one should be, but we're open to ideas. Okay. But we'll that one worked for a long time. Yeah.
What's the new slogan for meal prep for you?
Yeah.
So like most of us are struggling, as we've said, to make it happen. And for many of us, it's not just about knowledge. It's the time, it's the creativity. Like, why do you think so many people are kind of struggling with incorporating healthy eating into our lives?
I think what we're experiencing, and like I think what we're experiencing is the dual income families.
Yeah.
Like that's a huge thing. Like a lot of the feedback we get is people sitting around a dinner table and eating is a lost art. It's not happening. Yeah. And so with that, it's a chain reaction everywhere because you're getting a couple, if you have a husband and wife, whatever the scenario, it's like you're coming home to two tired individuals. And so not only are they almost getting like the only tired version of each other, it's like do you want the blizzard? Yeah, I'll have the blizzard. And then you guys both are going for it because you're both tired. Dinner's not probably prepared. There's no one to blame because nobody was at home all day and you're equally putting in full effort. So I think just the way of the world, that's created all these companies that are offering convenience to bring meals right to your doorstep. That's the biggest piece I'd have to say from what I hear is that's one piece, I suppose. And then the other one is more desk focused jobs. Like there's less active trades and a lot of that. Like there still is, but it's a lot less.
Yeah. And I think too, like I read a stat somewhere that actually maybe to your first point, like we're just not cooking at home anymore. And the dynamics of our families have changed such that, like I'll just say, call it what it is. Like women are working outside of the home. We literally, oh my gosh, my husband and I literally just had this like intense discussion. I'll call it an intense discussion the other night because like we both work full days and then we get home and it's like, I just want to go for a walk while it's light out with the dog. And he just wants to like lay on the couch and watch the news. And neither one of us want to make the food. And so anyway, I was saying like I just read this stat that more than 50% of meals in Canada are now consumed outside the home. So like people are just like, screw it. Yeah. Let's just go down the street and grab something.
So that's exactly what's happening. And then with meal prep, like that's a good stat for business probably. Yeah. And I think that we can hook, like we as like a business, we know if we get a customer that comes in and they're leery, it's going to be a middle-aged or older couple because they traditionally have cooked and they're going to get their first meal and they're going to kind of go, ooh, like they're not used to paying for just a single dinner. And it may seem like in their mind, they might have it pegged at being like the same price. And it's going to be obviously a little bit more to have it cooked, prepared and brought to you than just cooking it yourself. But we know if that customer comes to us 3 or 4 times in a row that their fridge is going to get depleted and now it's a bigger deal for them to go get the staples. And we know that that customer for us is an opportunity to really land them as a lifetime customer, we would call them, which is a great thing. And then it takes 3 or 4, sometimes a little longer, 5 weeks for them then to come in and say, we're saving money because we have no waste when it's a couple of 2. And I know you have kids, but with older couples where they empty nesters or anything like that, they'll actually find that they're saving money on top of it because buying a whole head of lettuce and these different things that spoil in your fridge is expensive. So after we kind of know they're in 3-4 preps, we call it a prep every Sunday and Wednesday is when we get to see our our customers.
Your regulars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we know that they're hooked, and we know their fridge is going to get depleted from the staples. And then we know that they're in 5 weeks going to come back and say, hey, we're saving money.
Well,
so
and it's really,
yeah.
it's really delicious. And,
Mhm.
you know, another stat is like that I found was that nearly half, 46% of Canadians say lack of time is their biggest barrier to healthy eating, and followed by not knowing what to make, 28%.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's cost. So I think that, you know, the reality of it is like, yes, there's a bit of a lost art, and we can talk about, you know, the sociocultural impact of not sitting down to have dinner together as a family. But the reality that we're facing is that, you know, we're getting sicker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
we're not living as long, or we're becoming more concerned. I mean, one of the great things, there's a lot of things that I don't love about social media conversations around health, but one of the good things that's happening is we're starting to talk more about longevity.
Yeah.
Right. And so people actually like, oh, I do want to optimize when I'm younger.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all of these things kind of contribute to the scenario where a service like this is actually a real benefit.
Yeah. I'd like to think it's it's a benefit. Like, obviously people aren't going to stop both working families, households, things like that. The biggest piece, though, like on that front, is prevention, is being organized in your early days or at any point and just getting ahead of it. Because like I'm surrounded right now in certain family dynamics with some health issues, and you can't go back on it, unfortunately. And it's really sad and hard to see, but it's like once some of these ailments hit, it's like there is no going back. And so it's like you can definitely figure it out from here forward, but it's like you are going to have these symptoms for the rest of your life, unfortunately. So it's the same. It's the same as like financial planning, meal planning, all these things. It all ties in. If you kind of want to get to the end of the road with some comfort that you do want to retire and you want to then still have great years, you need to kind of be thinking about it now.
Earlier.
And the same as your finances, these other pieces, they're all the same. You have to be less impulsive, a little bit more organized, and you know, there's sacrifice with it. That's just the reality. So yeah.
I think that you know, like there's a lot of misconceptions out there around what is health and healthy eating in particular. What is the most common misconception that you hear? I mean, you're on the front line.
Yeah.
So like, what do you hear?
The most common misconception is, this is a tricky one, but the misconception is that all calories are created equal.
Oh yeah.
And there's a point in my fitness career when I was really working out at one point for all vanity. I was in doing these contests, these men's physique contests, and these different things. And in that world, they call it if it fits your macros. And what that means is you can get your carbohydrates from a chocolate bar, or you can get them from a sweet potato.
But
and
it
it's the
doesn't
same.
matter.
It doesn't matter. It's all, at the end of the day, all calories are equal. And people will argue this because I think you can definitely lose weight on that if it fits your macros. I know you can, but in terms of what your body recognizes, what ailments it creates long term, it's not equal. And your body recognizes and knows what to do with whole foods. It knows how to digest it. It knows how to use it as energy. Where when you're constantly playing with blood sugar levels and these different things, even though it fits your calories, there's a totally different response going on in areas you just can't see. And so I know at a young age I could get away with it and I could get really in great visual shape. But I know if you see somebody doing that for their whole life, it's like things are wearing out on the insides. And
so the calorie, like, I mean, I'm like from that era where it was just like count the calories. Yeah. And if you're in I mean, there's like a whole raging debate about the calorie deficit.
Yeah, it's a thing and it's important, and you need to be in a deficit for sure to lose weight. But the easiest way for people to lose weight and the most practical way to do it long term is literally just stay satiated on whole foods. Your body will know what to do with them and will know how to digest them. And if those things are all aligned, and we were talking about it earlier, you'll sleep better. That's a big one. Your gut biome and these other areas that control appetite and digestion and all these other things, that'll be way more balanced out immediately. And then your inflammation and other things will go down. So when you're out walking, it won't be painful. You'll just be gliding and feel normal and like we're supposed to. So I'm a huge pusher of just whole foods. And I get it that counting calories is a great way to understand like where you're at. Because some people are surprised by it, like they eat way more or way less than they realize. So it's like a good way to get your foundation set. But after you get some reps in, I think like whole foods, like forget about it. Just eat till you're full on whole foods on a balanced diet. And I would love to see basically I'd take the argument that you're not feeling better. And in turn, you're going to have a better body composition.
Like if you're on a steady diet of like processed food and chocolate bars and whatever, even if you are in that calorie deficit, you may see weight loss, but you also are not really you're not like optimizing your
You're
health.
not optimizing. You're not. And so I'm a huge pusher of that. Like the macro conversation comes up, but there's a micro too, and you need your minerals and your vitamins, and those are coming from whole foods. So yeah, I'm a huge pusher of that. I do not count calories. I haven't in years. When I want to dial it in, if you will, I just go really deep down the path of like whole foods, steaks and chicken and all the vegetables and the carbs, and I eat it in a ratio that makes sense, and like because I've just learned that process. But it's a whole food diet. If everybody was eating like we did 50, 60, 70 years ago, I think we wouldn't see a lot of the things we see today.
Totally.
Those are my beliefs. So yeah, again, I know calorie deficit works, but I know what we're talking about is health. And I've always like removed the look good, feel good to feel good, look good. So if we can start feeling really good, it just makes everything really, really easy.
Yeah. You make better choices. Again, it's
Completely.
that flywheel thing. It's like
it is.
chicken and egg, right? Like you start eating better, you start feeling better.
Yeah.
You start making better choices,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that.
Yeah.
We all sort of cycle up and down too. Sometimes we're really, at least in my personal experience, it's like I'm on it. Like, I'm on it. And then, you go on vacation and you sort of slide.
Yeah. And that ties in really well. I have a guy right now, he's on a really great meal plan. He's following it to a T where he wants to track and make really conscious decisions. He's out on a trip right now and he texts me, he's like, what's your best advice? I'm like, space your meals, eat whole foods, and don't waste a day when you get home to get back on your plan. Cause that's where the fall off happens. Everybody can go away, do the all inclusive, eat what you want, but they wait months and years till they get back on. And then it's like, that same 10 pounds, you just have to lose it 100 times. So if you can just jump back on the program, day one of returning from a holiday.
And if you set that intention, like when you go, then you can like at least give yourself the grace to enjoy your
100%.
Maybe a little bit of extra sorbet.
Yeah. And that's what I tell people. I'm like the 10% more enjoyment you'll get from eating like in the moment of like what's making sense for the occasion far outweighs like the 1% lost in terms of like the little bit of water inflammation or something, because we can lose that in days. Like it doesn't take long. So I just push people like rebound quicker. What
are some of the like maybe top 2 or 3 ways to derail? Like, okay, so full disclosure.
Yeah.
I do this. I throw myself on the fire in this podcast, like I love something sweet at the end of a meal, and doesn't seem to matter how like dialed I am. I still want it. And I like a glass of wine here and there. So like I'm just asking you, like, what are the sort of like watch out, these are like ways to derail all your progress. It's like you said, if like you're doing keto and then all of a sudden you have a glass of wine, you're just like really just like throw it all out the window.
Yeah, for sure. And there's levels, right? So if there's somebody that is on that level that really like, I want to compete in bodybuilding and do these different things that really acquire like a certain high like level of physical vanity in these things, it's like you just have to basically be very like, your food is no longer, it's fuel. That's purely what it is. And that's, you have to just adopt that you're a professional, that's your job.
You don't get to deviate. Like have
But if we're exactly. There's nothing, right? There's no wiggle room. But if you come back to like general well-being and just health and living in a body you're confident with and all these different things, there's better choices even in the sweet department. And like I'm really guilty for that as well. And I love it. And that's why we built like the most vast gluten-free, no sugar, but whole food. Like we sweeten all of our treats with unsweetened applesauce and things like that. But so not to plug meal prep on the treat department, but we built a whole avenue and leg off the business.
Because I'm not alone.
because everybody wants to do it. And
Yeah.
so again, it's like you should do it. You should just moderate it.
Right.
Like 1 glass of wine is good. 3 probably is going to impact your sleep, and then you have the flywheel work in the wrong direction. So
Right.
so there's these things, right? But moderation,
Yeah.
like having a sweet or some chocolate, it's like, can you have a piece of chocolate versus the whole bar, and these different things, they truly add up. Like, and again, coming back to the calorie window, I come back to like 1 burger doesn't make you overweight and 1 salad doesn't make you skinny. So it's like we look at things over the course of a week and in some cases over 2 weeks. So that doesn't mean you can just blow a day and have a good day and blow a day, but it's like you can have those little moments. But over the course of 2 weeks, how did you do?
Right.
And are you 80% there? Are you 70%? And if you are, then you're probably.
And is that a good metric for people in their mind? Like, it's like let's say a 2 week or a month period, 80% sort of locked in. Making
incredible
good choices.
Results, like life-changing results. If you can lock in for 80% of the time and just like be good breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then you do want to have a dessert, it's like you'll probably see significant results if you can sustain that. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. But yeah, just get people to look at their weeks instead of their days, like,
right?
Because you can just beat yourself up over little things that you shouldn't. Because it's like, how much relaxation. I always actually come back to, this is a funny one, like Warren Buffett's like 100 years old and everybody knows the name, and he drinks Pepsi or Coca-Cola, I should get that right, every single day. And he's just like, his attitude towards that is, he's like, I know it's unhealthy, but the effects I get of the relaxation and the enjoyment and the mental clarity far outweighs the stress of not having it. So we need to find that balance. Totally. Channel your Warren Buffett.
Yeah, your inner Warren Buffett. Yeah. Totally.
But I do like listening to him because he's got like one of the most horrific diets, and he's 100 years old or 90 something years old. And he talks about the mental positive effects he gets from some of these indulgences. Mm-hmm. And so there's something to be said about that.
He's an outlier in a lot of regards.
Every single regard. Love the guy. Yeah.
Totally.
So, cool. We all learn a lot from him.
So you've talked about kind of like your approach to meal planning and what factors go into decisions about optimal meal planning. But a lot of it is like you're providing the service that is convenient. And so like how important is it when you're trying, like I'm going to assume that the people listening to this are ones that are curious about making a real change to their diet and nutrition. So like I think I know the answer to this, but how important is it, or how do you balance convenience, right, with like needing to sort of stay locked in? Like, we travel or we find ourselves out of the house for like 8 hours instead of 6, and we were, we thought we would be home in time to have. What do we do?
Like, from what I gather, a lot of people can do really well with that. I don't find that to be the biggest hurdle. Like people can plan and they can do a good job, and what we've been calling it is just like lock in on what their goal is. Where people fall off is they have a hard time being selfish in certain moments towards their goals. Like they'll put the moment of their friends and family well ahead of theirs. So nobody wants to pull out a meal prep meal when they're at a birthday party. Yeah. Nobody will do that out of the selfish nature or what that might project. So it's like two things. It's like, it's hard to be selfish. And that's how that would be perceived, even though it's like, we're talking, if we go deeper, it's like, it's your health. It's like you're preventing ailments that will impact that people that you're not doing that for more down the road, but you won't do it because you're perceived as the weird guy at the party, or like
it's embarrassing, or
all these things.
It's
and
like those. I think about too when somebody has made the choice not to drink alcohol, right? Like that's a brave choice in some situations, but it's not unlike this where it's like, it's
the same thing. And so people fight, like if we go on the extreme. So I'll talk about him because he's a sore spot for me. But my dad, he's a huge man, and he's well overweight, and if I called him and I was across country right now and I'm like, hey, I need you here, the guy's going to show up for me. But if he has to show up for himself when it comes to diet or getting healthy or anything. He just won't do it. It's not going to happen right now. And so it's the same. There's addiction components to it, I'm sure. And I won't speak too deep on that, but to alcohol. And that's a good example. But when somebody says I don't drink, it's kind of like understood. Like if they're just like hard line in the sand, I don't drink, you're like, ooh, probably a red flag, something happened there.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you're like, it's pretty accepting. But if somebody shows up to a social gathering with a meal that suits their goals, it's super weird. And so people don't get past that. And I think, like I said, it's a selfish thing. They won't do it because of it. And then it's an identity thing. It's like, my dad's a good example, and I've used him in different scenarios for conversation. And it's just like his identity is not that he's an athlete and a skinny guy and healthy. He's just allowed himself, he's a big man, and he's just like, everybody calls him like Big Papa, like it's like what his grandkids call him and everything else. So his identity is so over here. And it's just like, to me, it's not funny because I know where that's headed in his life. And so it's a soft spot, but I definitely think when I kind of probably deviated from the question, but I think it's a selfishness thing and an identity thing. It's not really a pre-planning convenience thing, because people will fall off in that moment and they won't get back on for weeks. And then it's like, okay, I know you've lost 100 pounds, the same pounds 10 times. I see that all the time. And it's because you lose the momentum in these moments, because it's every weekend for people, right? It's like, it's hard to recluse yourself to just like not going to events and doing things, because it's not life. So,
well, and I think actually you've made a good point about the connection between our identity and our level of, I don't even know what you want to call it, like self-commitment.
Yeah.
It's not like, people make choices about how they want to look, for a variety of reasons.
Absolutely,
and it's complicated.
Yeah.
It's always been complicated, but I think it's even more complicated these days. But there's a different psychology, I think, that happens when you make a commitment. Like I had cancer.
Yeah.
Like for me, this isn't just about like, oh, I want to look cute in these jeans.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes for me, the decision to make good, healthy choices is not about making other people happy. It's about like my own commitment to myself.
Yeah. And it still probably offers you challenges, and you have like a greater thing for it. And so it's like, yes, looking good is the number one most favorite byproduct. Of course, we all want to like feel that way. But ultimately, it's like you had this massive life-altering, potentially scary moment for you and your family and these things. So it's like you got that
extra.
You have that, and that's sometimes what it takes. And you didn't need that necessarily at all. That's not what I'm saying. But we'll just draw back on him. But my dad, he needs that, unfortunately, before he would actually make a significant change. And even then, who knows? But like a lot of people that we see coming through the doors, they've got a big scar on their chest, or they got different things going on, and it's like, that they're here because it's do or die now. And so, but it required that. And unfortunately, that's very, very common. Yeah. So yeah, the question was more based around convenience and these things. And I don't necessarily think that's the number one cause from what I see. It's the selfish behavior required to do it when everybody's not doing it. And then also just like the identity thing, like people really, if they've been a certain way for a long time, that's just who they are. And
totally.
It's really hard to change.
We won't get into the whole like GLP-1 Ozempic conversation.
My one touch on that is on all of that stuff. And I think there's maybe pros in certain areas, but I always just come back to the term, there's no free lunch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, when you look at shortcuts, and there could be certain instances where it jumpstarts a situation, but that's a big one, even in the bodybuilding sector, when we're talking about people that are already lean and all these things. I'm like, now we're basically encouraging drug use and eating disorders.
Right.
And so it's a whole different thing. But on the other end, I just feel like Whole Foods still trumps if we can remind ourselves that there is no free lunch. And so it's like long-term effects. Are you going to stay on that for 10 years? What happens?
Well, and we're seeing, again, evidence that people that are using these tools, let's call them, no judgment, are having good success, but then as soon as they remove the tool, they haven't learned.
The habits aren't changed.
What they need to learn in order to sustain kind of like the changes, right? And I think that's the powerful piece behind your message and the intention behind the service that you're offering is like, let me help you kickstart this. Like, this is what healthy, balanced eating looks like.
Yeah. And I think, that ties in. I think it is like, we won't go too far into that. I agree. I just think it's like, I always tell people, once your sleep's figured out, once your nutrition's figured out, the supplement side, and not even the Ozempic things and these other tools, if you will, but more like just simple supplements from protein powders to creatine or different areas. It's like, I think it can make up, if everything's aligned, 5% of the equation is like what it's sort of pulled back to. And I think even if they're more of like a trigger to what we were calling it, they'll have pro benefits for sure. But if they're a placebo, even that effect mentally where you're like springboarding yourself into the next positive decision, then by all means, but it's a single big, people will go blow $400 or $500 on supplements and not pay attention to their food. So
just get some yams.
Yeah. Just honestly, just go buy yams.
I hate yams. I'm trying.
You don't have to like them.
That's
why
the whole
thing.
Actually, you know what? Whenever I see one of like a meal prep for you box that has yams or sweet potato in it, I always get that one. Yeah. Because they taste much better the way you do it than when I try to do it at home.
Yeah. And we do nothing. We just put them in an oven and keep them plain pretty much. No, I shouldn't say that. That could be rude to my team.
I'm trying
they probably
too hard.
do something fantastic.
Team, the yams and the sweet potatoes taste good.
Yeah.
I do want to I'm getting the 10-minute call here, but I'm going rogue. I'm going Maverick because there's a couple things I want to touch on with you. Okay. You are very proud to source your ingredients locally.
As best we can. Yeah.
As best you can.
Yeah. And like we go really hard on our animal products. Yeah. Like those where like we start there. Like that I feel is critical.
Like locally raised
beef. Like Enderby through Abbotsford.
Yes. Yeah.
That's sort of where we would keep, like we'd consider all that local, and we need to have that range in order to get it done. Like the quantities that we use.
That's a good range though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say BC it'd be local, but Enderby through Abbotsford seems to be where we've been able to keep it to. Produce and these things, like it's funny if you go, like we go Quality Greens pretty much solely, which is a local company, and they have to bring some things in. But what's funny is like in the summer months, we get the most negative feedback on like, your peppers are bruised or these different things, but these are coming out of gardens.
Right.
And like we can clean and scrub and do all these things, but if you have like a little bit of dirt in your romaine lettuce, it's like, I'd like to, like from a consumer standpoint, if I remove myself, I'm like, oh cool, like it didn't get ran through highly like bleach and these different things, like all it's like preservatives and all this stuff. So it's funny because when we're able to go really local in the summer months, we get the most negative feedback from consumers because it's like they're
real.
It's super real, and
it's not as pretty as what's in the supermarket.
Everything's misshaped. The tomatoes are awful looking visually, but they're the most flavorful and these different things. And so it's really an interesting battle, but we're gonna stick to our guns and stay that way. So
I love that. And I really do appreciate that. And I think the conversation now, again, not to get political. Yeah. Everything's political these days, right? Oh gosh, don't get Arden started on her. She does a Trump impersonation.
I'd love to see it after.
It's so good. Well, it's really good. Anyway, but this conversation around, the importance of keeping our economies local and supporting our local growers and our local farmers, really at least for me, outweighs my need to have pretty looking produce.
And if we're able to talk about it, the more I can talk about it, the better, just because it's just the reality. Like you even go to grocery stores and they have like a discounted section for things that are just like misshaped, like fruits and vegetables predominantly. And it's like, if you go overseas, like if you go into other countries, that's how it looks everywhere. So we're just a bit spoiled with certain things.
I guess it depends what you think spoiling is. So, and I really appreciate that local food entrepreneurs like you do play a huge role in strengthening our local economies. And that was kind of one of the other reasons I wanted to have you on, because as a guest, you're talking about nutrition, and that certainly falls within sort of our wealthy, health is wealth parameters. But we're also talking about healthy economies. We're also talking about healthy communities, and being an entrepreneur and in the food. You know, we live in the interior of BC. We grow things here.
Yeah,
right? We have such a bountiful opportunity to leverage what we have right here.
It's honestly a layup. Like there's so much positive on that front. It's an interesting thing. Like I don't truly think we pay more to be local. Like I don't pay necessarily more, like they're more willing to work with us and they offer a better service and we get fresher products. We have less waste, these different things. So I don't feel going local has cost us much that really at all. So there's no, outside of a little bit of extra legwork initially, I feel like everybody has that opportunity. Like franchises I get, like we have a franchise, but they are in Alberta. So they're doing their own sourcing. And I would imagine if we had another franchise in Vancouver, Victoria, places like that, we would also push them to find their own vendors in that department. Yeah. And so it's doable. And there's reasons you wouldn't for nationwide companies and things like that. But if you're local, I think just go the extra distance early on. And these companies are more willing to give you service. And
totally. Yeah. And scale isn't always like the answer, you know?
No, I learned that the hard way, but a few different areas. But yeah, you think growing up or as you build a business, bigger is better. It's not always the case. It is maybe down the road, but a steady growth trajectory is also healthy in this industry.
And I mean, again, like there's so many offshoots in this conversation, but I guess if you want to drive a Lamborghini and like be an influencer, you know, scale is like the thing.
Yeah. You have,
if you want to do a service and you are passionate about what you're having an impact.
Yeah, that's a huge component. And there's two things like that play into that. So early on, I'd never looked at profit. I didn't really have my books so organized. It was just purely, I had enough money to do the next prep. And I always just operated that way for a long time. As you get into business, you get, like, I'm focused on profit, but it offers more resources. Like the more profitable we can become, I don't feel like we're gouging our customer. I know our margin and I know I could go higher in price due to like different competitors in the space and different things, but it's like we know what our margin is and it's healthy. So if we have that, we don't need to gouge or get more because we can. It's like I know what it's at. I need to extract profit because that offers more opportunity, not just internally for my team, but for expansion in
reinvesting.
100%. So I think if there's a mentor that I've just taken on. I've never met him. I'd love to meet him. Is John McKay. So he's the founder of Whole Foods and he's a super interesting guy and he's really well spoken and he gets into it. And after they went public, that company, he never took a dollar from his company. And it shows on the balance sheet. The CEO at that time was John McKay, $0. And he got to a place in his business, and I'm not there. Let's just preface that. But he got to a place where he was at a financial place that he was content. And he had sold it, or not sold it, but the new CEO had come in, they had questioned him. They're like, oh, I noticed that he takes a massive salary. Why didn't you do that? And he's like, two things. He's like, for one, if I made any more money, he's like, it would deviate me from the creative and I'd become less in tune with my business. And that was A. And then B he's like, the CEO that holds the business now has something he said, I have something. John McKay has something that he'll never have. And he goes, what's that? And he says, I have enough. And so those two theories I've always leaned on, where it's like we need money as small business owners to expand, build resources and be competitive. But at the same time, you never want to get to a place where you're just extracting dollars, especially out of a food business, because the integrity needs to be there.
For more profit.
More profit, just to, basically pay like upper management and CEOs and these different people more and more and more, because it just pulls from the essence of like what we're trying to do. When people eat 2 and 3 items from your business every day, if there's any bloating or any indigestion, any of these things, it's like pretty easy finger to point. So there's no matter how big we get, no matter where we grow to, I hope things continue to go well, obviously, but it's like, we don't want to sidetrack from like the roots. And so as long as I'm in control of it, like that won't happen. But yeah, we have aspirations. But I do think for this podcast, like John McKay, business owners, anybody looking, like he's very well spoken and somebody that I would admire. Yeah. I
hope that there are more young entrepreneurs that have that mindset. I just feel like I have a lot to say today. But in the current world that, or I will say, let's say capitalism and all of this sort of, turmoil and complexity that is happening right now in the world. You know, money, we need it.
It's a great tool. Yeah.
But it isn't everything.
Yeah.
And like, there are things that you can, like, it's like you said, what is enough and how can we have an impact in a way that it feels meaningful and purposeful.
Yeah.
Like I just can't buy into the theory that like having a Lamborghini means everything. Like you've made it.
Yeah. You don't want to
ever
be too attached to the material and these different pieces. So and these are lessons. Like these would be things that people will learn from themselves along the ways. And I've had my own for sure lessons along the way in these areas. But I think with business, like if we're speaking to even like it's, I was the younger demographic and now I'm not. And it's like, if I'm speaking to them, like if in theory, if I did a business plan, I would have probably never did what I did, because on paper it's like, oh, don't go into food. It's low margin. It's low this, it's low that. But at the end of the day, it's like, I went there because I didn't know that information. So So I think that's a huge underlying message, is like, don't get too caught up in just the attacking the biggest profitable businesses, because there's avenues. Like my whole network has come from drawing people into my storefront, all my closest friends, all the people that I can call on in a pinch, or all these different things. There's variables that a business plan doesn't offer. So I always go down that path where on paper, meal prep is probably a low margin business in comparison to tech companies and these other things. But there's some intangibles that it brought me. So
and I keep going back to, I have a son who is very interested in business and curious about kind of like how to build a business. And, I think the intention you go into it with is, like if you follow not necessarily your passion, I'm not as hype about the passion part anymore, but like follow what you're good at.
Yeah, completely.
And like that will lead to this I can feel it in your energy, is like this sense of satisfaction in what you're doing. It's like, this is like, makes me feel good. Right?
Yeah, it does. And it's like, it's funny to sit here to do this, because it's like these are like the glory moments of building something that it's getting recognized, that's exciting. But it's like, if you look at the day to day, it's like you do it is the cliche thing. Like you do the dishes of the business. Like you clean up after it. And it's like, it is those things. So don't glorify it. Like just do the work, roll your sleeves up. It has to be that way. That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Those are like the only way to get it going. Be resourceful.
And I'm going to put this out into the universe. I hope the universe rewards intention like that. Like
it does. It for sure does. Yeah. It can't ignore it, because especially if you just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
I want to just, before we wrap up, you, as I mentioned, you were the recipient of the Kelowna Chamber's Top 40 Under 40 Award in 2023, one of them. And a lot of Gen Z, is it Gen Z? I guess it is Gen Z, is navigating a lot of uncertainty these days, right? And we've talked, a little bit about nutrition and health. We've talked a little bit about the importance of supporting local economies and that kind of wealthy. But I want to talk about like, like wealthy aspiration. And, there's a lot that Gen Z is navigating: career, climate, identity, and struggling to find their purpose in all of this noise. And do you think building something of your own, like you have, can be a way to create that meaning and impact? And what has entrepreneurship really taught you about purpose and, being a human?
I'd say it's like, I'm so in like a learning state with it still. Like I suppose I've never really worked too traditionally. Like I explained that it was golf, and then it was a couple like things here and there to tie me over until I got into fitness full on, and then meal prep sprung into my life through fitness. And but it's interesting. Like I got in my truck yesterday and I was driving home, and I called my fiance and I'm like, I totally mismanaged. Like I'm 10 years in and I overreacted in a sense. And I never like being reactionary to anything. Like everything's fixable.
Like to a situation?
Just to a situation. And it's like, I'm 10 years in and it's like, you have to just be a critic to yourself, to learning on the fly how to adjust and how to manage and work with people and meet people where they're at when they're there, in a sense. And that's like a piece that probably never ends. I'd like to get to a place where I can control myself and I'm there and most of the time, but I could feel comfortable to teach on that front, because it's like there is so many lessons in business. It's a living thing. Things come up every day that the buck stops with you. So it's like if the team can't solve it, you need to solve it, and you need to solve it in a very professional manner. Like you can't overreact, like I feel like I have done, and by overreact, these are minor. I'm being critical of myself in these moments, but it's like it's a every day, it's a self-evaluation. How could have I done that better? Like how could I project the vision better? Instead of telling people what to do, just explain the vision and allow them to navigate for you. Like there's so many lessons in building a business that I think it's like an injustice not to do. Like I think I don't know.
Like if you have that.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong.
fire.
There's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with being a part of a company and being just always, if you have that desire, being a business owner might not be for you, but you still, if you're a part of a company, be the guy that's truly there. And it's just the little things. And we've been told this our whole lives, but be there early, be there late, do the little things. And it's okay to be like a strong number 2 in a company, or number 3 or number 10. It's like you can have your role, but just do it well.
Yeah.
I think those are like the biggest pieces. And with meal prep, I don't even know what my backup plan would have been. Like I'm open to it, like whatever that would have been. But meal prep for me was like, it's basically like one company that bundled up every lesson I needed in order to grow. And it's been huge success.
How do you think like what's the biggest thing that you think has changed to say 10 years ago, Morgan?
Just like you can be way more fluid in life than you think. Like you don't need to control the outcomes. Like I came into meal prep very open to an outcome. Like I explained, I attached to a feeling and then I'll say it, but like I allowed the universe to put the pieces in place. And if you can focus on something really large and just have it in the back of your mind, you'll incrementally just like inch your way towards it. You don't have to have a direct path anywhere. You can just like have it in the back of your mind, and intuitively you'll make decisions, whether you know it or not, that'll get you a little bit closer, just like baby steps daily. And then over 10 years, you've gone miles. And it's like, if you can just adopt that and then maintain it throughout your business career, like there's times you get rigid and you get comparison and you do these things, and that's also very cancerous for yourself to start comparing and super unhealthy. So just stay very fluid. As business it never doesn't go your way, and it never goes your way. It's just, it is. And so you just need to stay on that path of understanding that you can only control very little. And so just be open to the change that comes. And like I said, just be so fluid, like accepting, patient, not control it, roll with it. And like, those are the biggest lessons.
Yeah. And I think that's the fun part.
That is the fun part.
You can plan and you can control only so much. But there's so much that you just don't even know. And I don't know. I feel like this is the 50-year-old Virgo in me saying, "Oh, the fun part is the unknown." I hate the unknown.
Yeah, it's a piece of it for sure. And it's like, but that's also this thing where it's like every business owner is gonna think tomorrow's its last day, no matter how great the business gets. It's like tomorrow's always your last day, and it feels that way when you go to bed sometimes, or you wake up and you're like, man, like how great our team is good. This is good. Everything's so good. And by the end of the day, you're like, what the heck am I doing here? So that never goes away, I don't think. But
how do you, like you look back at, let's say, grade 11 Morgan, and Morgan today, how is your definition of health and what constitutes health care changed over the years?
Yeah, I mean, healthcare, I think we're like the tools that are in place through the hospital and through just general health practice, like it's incredible. Like we have so much where we live in BC probably nationwide to be grateful for. But in terms of nutrition, nothing's changed. Like it's the same foods, and it's always been the same foods. We've just deviated into more processed and cheaper and more convenient, and built stigmas around healthy food being expensive and all these other things. So it's like nothing on the nutrition front, like I would say, has changed. Like I have the same cookbook my mom made me when I went to college that I would apply into a meal prep today.
Really?
I would, yeah.
Wow.
And that was the recipes I used, actually. That's a funny thought, is that my mom made me this cookbook, and it was like muscle meatloaf and muscle meat hot dog, like all these things.
Did she make them up?
She made me a cookbook
Oh,
and sent
you
me
need
with
to
it.
give her credit. What's her name?
Her name's Karen.
Karen.
Yeah. And she's a part of meal prep today.
Good.
She works with the company full time, like
I love
all
that.
in. Yeah. So,
Yes.
yeah. So like all the same foods, it's all the same as it would be today.
Yeah.
It's just finding ways to get it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I love that, hearing that, so often we have clinicians sitting in that chair, and I always ask that question.
Yeah.
And, they came to healthcare from a very different path,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're in sort of like a Western medical modality way of thinking. So for them, a lot of time what's changed is this understanding that there is so much that can be done on the prevention side.
Yeah.
Simple things like good sleep, getting out and being in nature, things that you already knew.
And that's changed for me probably the most, is I was really involved in the quote unquote the hustle mentality for a long time. And that was really, you can get away with it you can get away with it probably quite some time. But in my 20s, I got away with very low amounts of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then building a business, naturally, you just get pulled from your sleep. So those would be areas that I think are faulty a little bit. You see people out there doing that, and you can get up early, you just have to go to bed earlier, that's all good, but you do need your sleep, and you can't fight it, and that's never
that's
changed.
healthcare.
Yeah, that's healthcare. Yeah. And so these other those are huge. And then I know we're tight on time, but we did, and I will share this information.
He's not going to give you the hook.
Okay. The information which we can share, but something meal prep's really involved in, and this is really interesting, and it'll be interesting to other guests that you would have had, but we run multiple studies each year with the university, UBCO, and they're huge studies. We just finished one, and it was 2 segments of 21-day periods of 30 applicants, and we did a Western diet versus Mediterranean diet. Every single thing they consumed, we controlled. And we did everything from gut biome to sleep to stool samples and palates and body compositions, and they went really deep on the study side. But for meal prep, we did a Western diet, which was comprised of 100 different averages of what people eat, which is highly processed foods for the most part, or convenience foods and box drinks and some pop and chips and different things. And some components were generally good. And then we did 100% of Mediterranean, which was 90% already meal prep with a small pivot of added specific olive oils and things like that. But we just completed that yesterday. And so so when you're talking about quantities, we're producing 5 meals for 30 people, 7 days a week for 21 days straight. So thousands of meals on both the Western and the Mediterranean side. So we do things like that. And we've worked with the same level of applicants that are type 2 diabetics, and how to stabilize sugars through fiber and different things. And so we have done high level in-depth studies, and unanimously it's a calorie is not equal.
The calorie is not
because these
the
are all
same.
controlled. They're 2,300 and 3,200 calorie diets, Western and Mediterranean.
So the meals are exactly the same in terms of their caloric, whatever,
and fat, protein,
value.
carb content. And the depression effects and different things that people aren't
that's what
attributing.
You're testing.
We're testing everything,
Yeah.
Everything from inflammation to gut biome, everything. It's deep, and that to me is where I can put this to rest.
I love that.
Yeah. So yeah. But one of the big ones is people. We'll use the word depression, whatever you want to call it, but people's ability to just I guess what I would call it is their vibrations much lower on processed food diets. Yeah. So anyways, that's something that we're involved in.
I would
love
to get the name of that researcher, because that sounds like amazing work.
And
that's happening here.
It's happening here locally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a huge budget they put together, and a huge study. So
awesome.
Yeah, just something I did want to share that, just because we are doing our part in gathering information, even though, I don't come from that background.
Yeah. Good
Yeah.
for you. That's
Yeah.
so exciting, Morgan. Last really, really quick question. I love this question. What areas of your health? Okay. And just remembering that our definition of health is very all encompassing. What areas of your health do you feel you are wealthy?
I feel in my health, I mean, I'm rich with, I have fantastic relationships that have all been mended through my business. So like all my closest guy friends, and my circle of guy friends, they're all met because they were coming through my door of prep. They're all best friends. We're all best friends. There's a group of 5 of us, and we're all extremely about our fitness, and fitness being eating a balanced diet, just challenging each other in other areas. And so I think I'm extremely wealthy in that area for sure. Yeah.
And you mentioned you are engaged. You're getting married this summer. Love that.
Yeah, that's exciting. So, and that's somebody that, she was very early on a part of meal prep and really helped curate the ideas and so on. So yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Morgan, it has been just a real gift to have you on this podcast. I know, you're kind of a guy that doesn't maintain a big social profile. You work quietly and very hard behind the scenes, but you're having a huge impact in our community. We didn't even touch on the relationship between Meal Prep for You and the KGH Foundation. You've been providing meals for a few years now, I think.
Yeah, it was Sally was she worked at KGH. I don't know. I think she was in the surgical department, and she got me an introduction 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And so we've actually been a part of, at a smaller capacity than we are now, of KGH for 6 years. And then we partnered, or we do an annual donation to Joanna's House for, I think we're on like year 3 or 4 now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it just extremely community minded. The meals that you're providing for our staff, families, patients, are balanced and healthy, and just provide such a contrast to, the terrible stigma around hospital food. I'm not lying when people are like, around here, oh, I forgot my lunch today. I guess I have to go buy one at the parking lot or at the Royal Bistro. It's actually like a good thing. Last thing, if you could leave our listeners with one message, what would it be?
That's a good question. I feel like we talked about nutrition, and we talked about, nutrition, younger demographics being clear. I feel like my mind right now comes back to just a quote where it would be more entrepreneurial, or you mentioned your son. And I think the quote goes something along the lines of, successful individuals fail more than failures. And that was something where I was so used to failing through school in different areas, and not like fully just like failing, but just struggling and just like trying things and failing, that when I got into business and I just hit roadblocks, it was so normal to me that it didn't disrupt me or veer me off my path whatsoever. And when I think back, it's like, holy, I basically you just kind of fail your way through it. And I feel like nowadays, and speaking to your son maybe, is that if he's trying to find a path, or if he's trying to be too perfect, don't worry about it. And so if we go back to that quote, I think it's something that resonates with me a lot, and it's more entrepreneurial than it is health focused. But even with your diet, if you fall off the wagon, it's like, just so what? It does not matter. We'll all do it. I do it. And it's just part of the journey. So it's a lifelong path.
And I do love that. It's such great advice. I think all of us still need to learn that, because this is like culture of like perfectionism and always having to have a plan and always having to like be locked in on your goals and this and that. But like life throws curveballs. Also, there's so much interesting things that happens in between the lines that it may not necessarily be a failure. It may just be pushing you towards the path you're supposed to be on.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, Morgan. This was a great conversation, super empowering, enlightening. And I just encourage everybody that's out there that's thinking about getting on a nutrition journey, whatever your goals are, just take a look at Morgan's website, Meal Prep for You. There's lots of offerings there to just get you kickstarted. And this is a business that's rooted very solidly in intention and purpose, giving back to our community, and run by just a stellar individual. So
Wow.
Thanks, Morgan.
Thanks. Appreciate having me.